Hello, everyone. My name is JP, and welcome to the Adaptive Card September community call. As a reminder, this community call is hosted on the second Thursday of every month, and this time it looks like we actually got chat working, so that's exciting. We'll hopefully be able to get some more questions from folks towards the end of the presentation. And just to go over what we will be presenting about, I'd like to give a warm welcome to Jyoti Pal from the Microsoft Search team. Jyoti, are you on the call?
Yep. Hey, everyone. Hey, JP.
So Jyoti today is going to be talking about Microsoft Search and how they're powered with adaptive cards. And right after that, I'll be talking about a closer look at what's coming in 1.5, as well as we'll leave some time towards the end for some Q&A. And without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jyoti. I'm with the Microsoft Search team. I'm a PM in the Microsoft Search team. And today I'll be talking to you about how we in the Search product are using adaptive cards. So to begin with, before we get started into how exactly adaptive cards are used, I wanted to talk to all of you about Microsoft Search, set up a little bit of context over here in case, some folks are not aware of it. And that will essentially help you understand more about how adaptive cards are really being helpful. So to start with, Microsoft Search is an intelligent search for modern workplace. The idea over here is that for our Microsoft users, and by Microsoft users, I mean our Microsoft 365 users, which encompasses a variety of products. On your left-hand side, you can see there's a gamut of products like Bing, Office.com, SharePoint, Outlook, Teams, and so many more. And the idea over here is how do we have one simple search across all of these Microsoft 365 products and for the enterprise. Also, what Microsoft Search does is it gives you search that's consistent and familiar from within any app that you're using. It also is intelligent search that personalizes results to you and your work, and also gives the ability to search from any device, anywhere. So in terms of experiences, we have Microsoft Search powering the experience for all of these different Microsoft 365 products. One of the ideas over here being that the essential idea over here, like I called out, being that we have a consistent and coherent search experience with all the goodness of search across all of these different products. Now, with this particular context, another important thing to focus on is, the users are searching from all of these different places, but the type of content that they are able to search is also of key importance. So traditionally, any of the customers or any of our users will be able to search over typical Microsoft content. So I'll urge you not to get lost in the diagram. Ignore the top first half of it, because that's what I spoke about earlier, and focus on the second half of the slide, which essentially talks about all the different type of content that a user is able to search for. Now, typically, what Microsoft Search used to support was the fact that because SharePoint, Teams chat, Outlook is something which is native to Microsoft, all of this content was easily searchable. But we know that users are not just using Microsoft products, and it's an entire ecosystem of products which are being used by users. And we want Microsoft Search to be that one single place where you're able to search not just Microsoft content, but also external content with applications and other type of organization data that users are actually using. And that is where this concept of external data sources comes into picture. And external data sources are essentially, other products that you're using. And this is where the concept of Microsoft Graph Connectors comes in. And the reason that this is important is that Microsoft Graph Connectors is essentially the product which is helping bring organizations bring in your external content into Microsoft, so that can also now be searched by by the organization's users, so that So Microsoft Search becomes that one single place where the users can go and look for everything that they require instead of having a fragmented search experience. So this is the mechanism of bringing in external sort of content inside of Microsoft Search and making it searchable. And this is essentially more of the part of bringing in the content. And the place where Adaptive Card comes in is on powering the user experience. And that is where we today are using Adaptive Cards. So when the content is external content in a way is brought inside of Microsoft, the question of how this particular content starts showing up on the various search endpoints is answered by Adaptive Cards. So we are using Adaptive Cards to show our search results on all of these different kind of experiences. Now this provides us the capability to essentially allow customers to customize information and layout as per their content. And it lets us essentially allow organizations to tailor the search results as per their needs. So this is where we are essentially are using Adaptive Cards. Now, looking at this particular image, one may wonder why Adaptive Cards is even necessary, because this looks like a very typical search result experience where which consists of primarily, just key some important information like a title, a link, and some kind of a description which is associated with it. And that's where I think that's where it's important to sort of keep in mind and understand all the gamut of different types of content sources that we were looking at in the previous slide, wherein there we depending on the nature of the content that is being brought in, the way the data is presented and the way the type of information that is presented starts becoming key to each and every content that is being brought in. And this in itself also varies sometimes from organization to organization. And essentially that is where Adaptive Card sort of shines for us, because it allows us to provide an easy mechanism that is used by our customers to customize the information that is shown and the layouts that are shown as per their needs. So this is essentially how in search we are today using Adaptive Cards. In terms of the tools and capabilities, this is something which is used by, in our case, the search administrators primarily, wherein once they set up a graph connector and they start bringing in data inside of their organization, they have this ability to go ahead and design their search results as per their needs. This is an optional step wherein some kind of a basic layout, which was shown to you earlier, is provided to them out of box. But as per their needs, the search administrators can go ahead and start changing the result layout and the information shown according to, so that it suits the customer's need the best. Any questions so far?
It looks like we have some questions here in the chat. I'll just go ahead and read them off, Jyoti, if that's okay. One of the questions was, is the whole search out of the box, or is this dependent on an organization embracing search and knowledge management?
Search is out of box with a set of Microsoft 365 products. So for example, if you have your M365 license, the search automatically is available on endpoints like SharePoint, Office.com, Microsoft Search and Bing, Outlook, Teams, etc. So this is the out-of-box search that we're talking about. Now, the capability of adding connectors and bringing in external content, that is more something which starts depending on the type of licenses that you have. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Jyoti. And it looks like Mike has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I was curious, is the use of Adaptive Cards for search results, is that restricted just to external data, or can this be used to customize certain data types that live native to SharePoint Online as well?
Okay, that's a great question. So to start with, today I'm focusing more on what is available to broadly to all the customers, and this is more a starting point of allowing search customization for external content. However, we are working on making the existing search results also customizable. If needed, I can share more details on in the chat as well about the Microsoft Search roadmap item that we have. But to start with, we are looking at certain type of content like SharePoint list items, SharePoint pages in some cases, where we have seen the need where additional information actually needs to be shown on the search result, which is currently not present with the default or out-of-box search results which are shown. And the same adaptive cards and the same configuration setup that we are exposing for external content can be leveraged for designing the SharePoint native, this specific type of SharePoint native content as well.
All right, I think we can go ahead and move on and save some questions for the end of the presentation.
Sure. So I think, okay, so post this, what I wanted to do was actually do a short demo, which can help you understand how exactly we are using this, and also walk you through the designer tool that we have at present. So let me switch over. So in this case, I am showing you the Microsoft 365 Administration Center. Now, this is just to help you understand. I will not be going over it in full detail, but then the concept of how we are bringing in external sources is sort of something which can be explained over here. So within Microsoft 365 Admin Center, we have settings, and under that we have the Search and Intelligence tab. And within the Search and Intelligence tab, we have data sources. And this is essentially the mechanism through which today, if you want to configure your Microsoft provided connectors, the add button is helpful for that, as well as any partner created connections, etc. All of it will show up over here. So this space is mainly for management. So over here, what I have already done is created 2 connections. One is for MediaWiki, which is WindowsWiki, and the second one is for Azure DevOps, which is essentially indexing some Azure DevOps test project that I had created. If we go under the customization tab over here, we have this concept of result types. So essentially, this is the configuration or the search configuration, which needs to be created by the search administrator to define the type of layout that they want to use. So in this case, I have already created one for the Azure DevOps connection. So this is a default one that I have created over here. So some of the basic, and it's a simple, straightforward type of a setup. The basic information which is essentially required over here is tying the content source or the data source in this case, which is the Azure DevOps connection with the connection ID, along with the result layout. So if you see over here, this is where the search administrator is providing the search layout, which is essentially the adaptive card JSON. Now, in this particular case, what we have done is that whenever the search administrator is trying to define a search layout, we have provided a layout designer. Which is essentially built on top of the typical, the usual adaptive card designer, which is already available. But in this case, because we are tailoring this experience for search administrators and for search, there are some additional things that we have done. So to start off with, what we do is provide the search admins with a list of templates so that they can actually go ahead and pick one which suits their needs. And as you can see over here, depending on the type of content that you have, the search layouts can vary. So in some cases, we see that information that needs to be shown is more metadata driven, where it's more of fact value pairs that need to be actually shown over here. Whereas in some cases, the results could be pretty simple with just a title, some additional information and description. So these are the different types of templates which are offered out of box to search admins. And apart from this, once they select a search template, all they need to do is get started. And this is a layout which essentially needs to then be mapped to the the properties of the search result. So this type of a mapping is something that the search administrators need to do. And once all of the mapping is done, the let me just do generic one. So once all of the mapping is done, the submit button gets enabled. And I think I've messed up something. So this submit button gets enabled, and the JSON of the layout is essentially generated. So it's a pretty straightforward and simple setup for search admins who are looking to use the provided templates as is. In some cases, if the search admins actually want to go ahead and make some modifications, then we provide them the option of editing the layout. In which case we actually sort of, we have done some kind of, we take the adaptive card designer, which is present, and we are showing it. So it's the same adaptive card designer with slight design changes, which can be used by the search administrator to go ahead and make changes as they require and complete the creation of layout JSON. So once this is done, this entire step is done, and this search result layout is created, the end users will can see the experience today on SharePoint. So what happens is, in this case, I have already done a query for in this case, Mark. And what we start seeing over here is these are the results that are coming from SharePoint. Apart from that, you start seeing results which are coming from the MediaWiki content source. So a wiki vertical has been created over here, which is this one on top. And the search results from there start showing up. And users can just go ahead and click on this, and it will take them to the corresponding wiki page. Now, the same experience automatically gets enabled for office.com as well. So you can see over here, it's the same set of experience which comes in, as well as for Microsoft Search in Bing. So essentially, with one single sort of, simple configuration, the search admin is able to enable these experiences in different types of places. And another important, point that I wanted to bring out was the one where I was talking about why adaptive card essentially is needed. So in this case, this is a wiki result where it's pretty straightforward, the type of information that is being shown. But let me switch to the work items tab over here, which is showing results from Azure DevOps. Now, over here, we see that the type of information that is being shown is slightly different. So we want to show much more information to the search users. In this case, show things, important metadata related to each and every work item. So that helps the, the users gather more information about what they're searching for. And this essentially is, possible through the use of the, different types of features which are available in adaptive cards. I'll stop here and see if there are any further questions.
Thanks a lot, Jyoti. And I encourage anyone, if anyone has any questions here for Jyoti regarding Microsoft Search or the demo that was presented, please go ahead and ask them now instead of at the end of the call. Jyoti's actually in IST time, so it's very late for her. So we want to be respectful of time and ask any questions if we have them now. It looks like we have one here in the chat from Gao. It says, can we design the results of 365 search with adaptive cards?
I don't fully understand what 365 search refers to. Today, essentially, like I showed over here, there are, different types of, I would say, search endpoints which are powered as a part of Microsoft 365 products. So in a way, yes, the search results which are being shown on these different search endpoints can be designed using adaptive cards. So maybe if you can elaborate more on what 365 search exactly means, I can help with that. And is Dynamics 365 CRM considered external? So similar to, I would say, the way I'm showing Azure DevOps over here, it's not truly external from a Microsoft perspective, but from the perspective of Microsoft 365 products, it is in a way considered external. And that is why today, by default, you do not see the search results showing up automatically. There are some plans underway for showing Dynamics 365 results as well. I'll have to look at the roadmap and I can share the roadmap details with you on chat. And I see another question from Mike. Is there a way to have people show up in default all section? People who have keywords listed in the Ask Me About section of their profile are not displayed in the all section and only visible in the people section. Let me try to see. This is a test one, so I'm not sure. Okay, let's look at Megan. So generally, okay, I think I get what you're talking about. Perhaps this. Okay, so today people do show up in the all section. It's just, I would say, the information which is shown on the all section is not what you show completely on the people. But that's a great feedback, Mike. I'll take that back to the respective team to let them know that the other information which is generally provided and Ask Me About also should surface on the all vertical, because that's what users are looking for. Thanks for the feedback. Okay, I think if there are no other questions, then I'll hand it back to you, JP. That's all from my side.
I think we had one more. It was next, can a power user set this up, or is it mainly IT driven? I think that was in regards to the is search provided out of the box question.
So this sort of depends on the context that you're looking at. If we are talking about this context, for example, SharePoint, Office.com, or Microsoft Search and Bing, there it is primarily the search administrators who can design the search result experience, because it is something which is managed at an organization level. However, if you are on a given site, and if users essentially are the owners of those sites, then they also get the site administrator role. And in that case, they can actually go ahead and design the search results. I think that brings up another important point over here, that this is not just limited to search admins. This is search admin first. But from a developer perspective, anybody who is developing or building a graph connector is also someone who will be able to define the search result experience for the associated graph connector. So there are APIs in works which will expose the capability for a developer to be able to build a graph connector to index the content, as well as define the corresponding search result layout for that as well. So that's also an area where we are expanding into.
Perfect. It looks like we have one last question here, Jyoti. Thank you so much for your time. Kyle wants to know, does an external data source need to provide data formatted in adaptive card format to plug into the search service? Or does the graph connector ingestion service / Microsoft Search accept any data format that is then manipulated into an adaptive card format?
So, okay, so there are two pieces to this. I think if I understand the question correctly, right? Which are two separate pieces. So the data ingestion happens with the help of graph connectors, and there is a certain schema or a format that is actually defined by the developer, so that the data, when it is being indexed, is not actually coming in using the adaptive cards. Once the data has been indexed, which is pretty much like a flat schema, in case of Contoso Wiki, you can imagine, let me actually, try to just quickly pull the schema up, because I think this will really make it much more easier to understand. So here you go. So this is the schema which has been defined. So the MediaWiki content, which is being indexed by the MediaWiki connector, contains the flat schema of title, URL, tag, state, priority, etc. And that is how the data is actually being ingested into Microsoft. Once the data is ingested, this result type search configuration is what ties the data with the adaptive card JSON. And in the adaptive card JSON, essentially, the tying of the layout is happening with the properties or the schema that has been defined. So if you see over here, I'm sure, let me just scroll down. So yeah, over here you see things like assign to, area path. All of these are actually schema properties that are being tied with the adaptive card JSON, and that's how the tying of the adaptive card with the data which is being ingested is happening.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jyoti. For any other questions, we can follow up offline. This demo was great, Jyoti. We really appreciate your time, and thank you for joining us in this community call.
Thanks, JP. I'll keep answering some of the questions which are there in the chat, but thanks, everyone.
All right. In last community call, we announced the features, but in this one, I think it'd be interesting to go ahead and show them in action. And the 3 features that we'll be talking about, which will be included in version 1.5 preview, will be the new table element that we have included, Input.ChoiceSet search, filtering, and autocomplete, and also ActionSet Overflow. So these are all 3 features that you can expect for version 1.5 preview of the SDK coming out sometime this month. We are targeting end of month for that. All right, so here we find ourselves in our nightly build of our designer, and we'll be able to find these features here to sort of test out before they go live. I just started out with this template for the calendar invite, and I've edited it in order to show these features. So I went ahead and added this update location, which is an Input.ChoiceSet that has the functionality for filtering and autocomplete. And if we're actually in preview mode here, but if we leave preview mode, we'll be able to see these 2 choices right here, reschedule and delete. And these are actually part of our secondary actions that we can take. So if we see right here, as part of the new functionality, we have ActionSet, we have our 2 primary actions, and then we have these secondary actions where if we are constrained by space, we can go ahead and set these, and it'll provide us with a flyout menu, as we'll be able to see once we enter preview mode. As far as the update location one, we can see that we added a new field for style filtered for Input.ChoiceSet, and this will allow us to search and provide us with functionality like autocomplete for our results. So if we jump here in preview mode, we can go ahead here. We have this list of choices, but if we want to quickly navigate the static list of choices, we can just type in 99, for example, and choose conference room 99, or something like 1500. And we'll be able to get that choice, which was not previously available with Input.ChoiceSet. As far as the flyout menu, this is how it works. It'll provide these choices right here, and we can also go ahead and edit these to make them primary actions instead, like so. Just remove the secondary property. And if we go into preview mode, we now see reschedule as one of the primary choices, and the flyout menu is still available because we have delete as the secondary choice. Now, as far as what I think is my favorite feature that's coming is this new table element right here. We start with a blank card, and we can just literally drag and drop this table element. And we can add rows, and if we go over here to the element properties, we can even go ahead and add columns. We can choose to have grid lines or not, a lot of customization, and even change the grid style effects. And even decide if we want this table to show up as visible from the start, or if we want to toggle the visibility. So really handy. I wasn't actually on the team prior to this, but I've heard that I think the previous way to achieve this was with something like stacked column sets. So I think this is a big improvement to that. All right. And I think now we'll go ahead and go into the Q&A section. We have Paul and Becky from our developer team, as well as I think we also have Raul from the PM team on the call available, and we'll all do our best to answer questions. Feel free to raise your hand or just speak up or type your questions in chat.
Hi, I was asking in regarding to the universal actions in adaptive cards.
Oh, I see. So regarding universal actions, when will it be supported in Power Automate? So that would actually be a question for the Power Automate team. I don't think we have anyone from that team on this call. It would depend on their implementations and how and their schedule as well. If you are able to send me an email, we can follow up offline with that one and try to get a more concrete answer for that question.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
We have a question from Steve. When will adaptive cards support more than 28 KB? Paul, would you have some more information on that one? I'm not sure if this is something we currently support.
Yeah,
I think
so.
Teams. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, it's a Teams limitation with I think with the bot framework stuff. I don't know if what the plan is and what the roadmap is for getting that limit raised. We should follow up with the Teams team and see if we can find out.
Perfect. So it is a Teams limitation though, correct?
Yes.
Sounds good. And Gao is asking, can a table be filled with REST call results?
So I can actually speak to that one too. So basically, you can use the results of a REST call in addition to templating, adaptive cards templating, which I will link in the chat here, to produce an adaptive card. Now, that assumes that you are the host of adaptive cards, or at least have a back-end way of constructing the adaptive card on your side before sending it over to the host.
And I think this one is also in relation to the table. Can it support real-time calculation based on the numbers in the table?
We do not have that currently.
That seems like a very interesting functionality, and I can see it being very useful. It seems a little complex for our initial release of the table element.
Yeah, and one thing that's probably worth noting here is that each cell in the table is effectively a container for adaptive card elements. So you can have image elements in there, you can have another table, you can have a text box, just kind of whatever you want to use it for. So, having calculations would be perhaps a little complicated given that.
Thank you, Paul, for that answer. It looks like we have a question here from Tony. Is there a table which clients support which version of adaptive cards? So I can actually speak to this one. The table element is something that's not out yet. It will be coming with version 1.5 of our schema. And we do understand that this is a current gap that we have and are trying to work towards a solution for this, but our clients will not have this functionality as soon as we release these schema changes. It'll take some time for them to be able to consume these changes and implement the functionality for that on their side. I think we missed my question above. Will 1.5 be available for Outlook? And Mike, that would be the same answer I provided. It'll take some time for these hosts to adopt version 1.5, and we can follow up with them to understand roadmaps for when they plan on consuming these changes. How will cards interact with the upcoming live component features? I'm not sure I understand that question. Mike, would you be able to elaborate a little on that one?
Microsoft recently released some sort of a sizzle reel about these components that were kind of document segments, like the ability to insert an Excel table inside a Teams chat, and the idea being that multiple people could interact with the data on there at the same time. And it sounds like there's a lot of overlap between that and the data table that you guys are talking about here. So I was curious where those lines were being drawn between these two different products.
I think for the other product, I can take that, JP. For that product, it's a much more complicated product. I think it involves writing a lot of code. It's like a completely different beast. I know it's very similar. It looks very similar in terms of like there's this rectangle of goodness where like stuff is happening, but adaptive cards are pretty like simple to author. They kind of like move between. You can like have them adapt to hosts. What you saw are also kind of like rectangles of goodness, but they're more complicated. There's more stuff that you can do there, but it also takes more effort to do that. So they are kind of different products right now, but yeah.
Will there be an ability to include like a live component as a part of an adaptive card? I think that's really, I wasn't looking to like build anything from scratch. I'm not a developer, but just if you can attach one or have a link to one or something like that.
That's an interesting point. I don't know if that's currently on the roadmap, but like that's an interesting thought. We can go back and think about that, but I don't think there's any plan for that yet right now.
It looks like we have a question from Steve. Does Teams support 1.4 yet? And I think the answer for this is yes. We actually announced this in last month's community call. We had a PM from the Teams team on the call, and they announced 1.4 support in Teams with some limitations. I can't recall the limit. I think it was something to do with action.execute, but I do know that team support for 1.4 has been announced already. Oh, and it looks like Steven, the Teams PM that we had in last call, is here as well. Any other questions? I've been trying to keep up with the chat, but if I missed one, feel free to ping the question so I can see it again. Is there a single master list somewhere that shows what card versions are supported by each Office app? Which card version supported?
I linked in the chat current page. I think it's up to date. I'd have to double check.
Yep, that would be the table. It will show every app and the version that it supports as well. Thank you, Paul. So we have some feedback here from Benjamin stating that Outlook is still 1.0, Teams is 1.3, and Flow is 1.2. So that would be something going back to the previous question that I answered. It is a gap that we are aware of, and we are working with our partners in order to unify this model a bit more. We understand that it's all over the place right now, and it's a pain point for our customers, and we have received feedback about this, and we are trying to address it. We can't commit to any timelines just yet, but it is something that is in our radar, and we are working towards a solution. Thank you for pointing that out, Benjamin. If there aren't any other questions, here's our list of resources. We have developer community calls found in these links as well, and we'll also have the recording for this call and the previous calls that have not been uploaded yet posted into our M365 YouTube channel right here. And thank you for attending the September community call. Our next community call is scheduled for October 14th at 9 a.m. PST. And I'm very happy to see that the chat worked this time and we were able to get a lot of engagement from folks. Thank you so much for joining, everyone, and have a nice rest of your day.